So we're live now, but let me double check it. Let's see.
Do you have a link I can share?
Yeah. Let me send it to you. Let me send. You want me to? I'll send it to you on Messenger.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do several things. I can put it on your wall.
I just send it through Messenger because I've got a private wall, and then I'll just put it on my wall.
Messenger.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Here we go. All right. Send this message. Michael. Okay. You're good there. Let me check the sound. Yeah, that's good. People are starting to roll in now. All right, let me put it into a couple other walls. You see it?
Yep, we're good.
Did you get it, Michael, in the messenger?
Yes, we're good.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. Got 12 people in the house. All right, let's see now. Set this up. Okay, anything happens on my end, I'll just pop out and come back in. We've had a few problems, but nothing that's caused the show to stop. Your feed will still be going. How's it going, everybody? It's Todd Medina, Soul Speaks 5D. Today it's a conversation with Michael Monk again. I think this is the third time he's been back on. It's a good day to have him on. He's an energy expert, and we need all the information we can get on the present moment. With the full eclipse of a red blood moon, I think it's the longest in duration in this century. And then going into what they call the Lion's Gate 88, and another, or I just heard this today, but the last eclipse of the year on the 11th of August. So sounds like it's a energetic highway of transformation. What do you think, Michael?
I think so. I mean, the whole last week's been that way for everybody that I know. Erratic changes in their patterns, inability to sleep more than a couple hours here and there, and just this sense of a powerful force that's driving them to succeed in different ways and to grow and evolve. And I've definitely experienced that myself. I'm a very inside out oriented individual. So when stuff's going on, I look for in here. So, like solar flares, for instance, people say the solar flares are activating our consciousness. It's actually our consciousness is activating. And so that causes an external reflection of that, which is the solar flares and stuff. So yeah, it always starts in here first. And then we look out there to have a gauge or a meter as to what's going on inside. And from my experience, that's the whole point of the physical projected creation, is to have that gauge or that meter to be able to see and experience what's within.
Yeah. That sounds legit to me. And it's funny because this morning I was trying to actually write something, and what I was trying to explain, but I couldn't verbalize it, was the feeling I was getting, which was that this day, this full moon eclipse, I feel it from the inside out, and I've never felt that before.
Okay.
And very resonated really deep. And like you said, it's just been one thing after another. I like the way you put it about how this energy is driving us to a certain place, or I say the highest and best place. But it seems to be both a combination of epiphanies, synchronicities of, which direction you're going, and also doors closing in front of you, behind you, around you, sometimes slamming.
Yep.
Yeah. So where do you want to start today? You're the energy master, and I think that's actually something that is becoming more and more common in the conversations, postings, that type of thing. Is people are starting to break it down to energy. It's all the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's where it's all got to go, because energy is what we are, and the part of us that's energy is the part of us that's going to survive the death of the physical body. And for all this time, our consciousness has been used to driving the physical vehicle, and it took us a while to learn that. It took at least a couple years to learn how to walk. Then we had to learn how to ride a bike. Then we had to learn how to drive a car, play sports. You name it. The physical body took a while for our consciousness to acclimate itself to, and because of the veil, we've forgotten entirely about our spiritual, our energetic body. So we have to completely relearn how to use that body from the physical, if we desire to leave this cycle of reincarnation and actually grow into our full potential. So energy mastery and study of metaphysics is truly the only real worthy work to be done for each individual.
Yeah, yeah, and the other thing that's interesting too is at the same time, and again, I talk to a lot of different people with the show, so there's a pretty broad spectrum of metaphorical communion or messages or understanding. But one of the things that seems to be occurring collectively is some type of greater symmetry or relationship or synergy with elementals, with insects, with birds, and like the language that you talk, the wind and the weather elements and such. Are you seeing some of that too?
Oh, for sure, yeah. That's primarily what I teach is all about. The out of body experiences are nice, and there are real spiritual, physical abilities that you learn. The kinesis and stuff, but it's really the true fruit in everything that I share is being able to connect to nature in that way. Because power gets old, it gets boring. You could shoot 10-foot flames from your hands, and it would be fun for a day or two, but unless you're in expanded consciousness and feeling, experiencing new things at a feeling level, that's what we live to do. And we seek feelings through physical pleasure when we don't understand spiritual pleasure. So we're sort of in a loop, like a rat in a wheel. But once you unlock the spiritual side of things, you can experience feelings and pleasures that go way beyond anything that you could, within in the physical paradigm. We can expand out and encompass the air and the sunshine and know what it feels like to have that be your body, to actually be sunlight. I mean, wow. Or to, merge with a tree and be your tree and your body at the same time. It's really glorious. And I always like to use this analogy about how we all felt when we saw the movie Avatar, by James Cameron.
Yes.
The beautiful type of connection that they had with their world. They were a primitive culture with no technology whatsoever, but everything that they experienced and the way they lived their life was far more beautiful and far beyond what humanity in that time had with all of their massive, space age technology. And then when we walked out of the movie theater, we looked at our world after engrossing ourselves in that, and it made us all pretty depressed, because we saw what direction, we're going. And the good news is that we can live with that type of connection, the same type of connection that they had in their world, but we don't need that special hair with the nervous connection. Our consciousness expands through the electromagnetic energy that's in all life, and we can truly live that way. I mean, there's not much limits on what all is possible. At higher levels of the connection, you can actually experience through the senses of animals. So we might not have giant dragon-like creatures that we can ride or fly, but you can project out of your body, merge with an eagle, and fly through the sky across the mountains and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I love what you say about everything that's occurring collectively, where everybody can see it, touch it, feel it, and all that. That it's a reflection of what's going on inside of us. I wanted to ask you. I was doing a lot of walking this past few days, and really integrating, mostly, what a lot of people were doing. And one of the things that happened to me is, I see waves sometimes and this and that, but I clearly saw this distinct, mostly straight lines and shapes such as rectangles, squares, rows, and columns as I was walking around outside, and I never really seen that before. It's almost like a false grid in front of reality. I don't know. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Yep. Those are grids basically, and it's pretty hard to determine what level they came from, because when your spiritual sight opens up in that way, all dimensions are in overlap. They're all in the same place. All worlds, all systems of reality, all different types of dimensions of experience are all in the same place. So it would be hard for me. It would be speculating if I were to say which grid you experienced. But every reality system is formed of geometries, as well as the radiative energy from the flower of life. that pattern goes through different geometries, and that forms the system of reality.
Wow, great explanation. And so, is there like a, I guess like a basic way to get acclimated, like as a beginner, going outside into nature and trying to mix that energy with nature, try to merge with nature, the different aspects of it? Is there, it's really in driven by our imagination, is it? Or is it not?
Well, yes, everything in spirit is driven by imagination, and at some level, all things are. So even this world was created by a creator with a very powerful imagination. So even when we move our body, like you imagine your arms moving up, and they do, because your spirit creates that energy within the electrical system of the body. So imagination is huge, and we are taught to discount it at a very early age here in the physical life. Imagination means not real. That's what it means here in the physical. It's either real or imagination. But imagination ultimately is the only thing that's real. And that's one of the first things that you'll discover, and that it's a critical thing to understand, is that when you connect to the energy body, you are connecting to densities of energy that our consciousness came from, that we're already comfortable within, that we've already fused ourselves with, that we've already mastered. And any density of energy that the consciousness finds itself in, that it is able to fully connect to, will respond perfectly to the mind, to the thoughts, to the imaginations, and the feelings. Here in the physical, it's not that way, because the physical reality is a high compression level of energy that's currently beyond our conscious ability to completely fuse itself with. So we don't own our physical bodies yet. We're borrowing them, where our spirits are overlapped through the electrical system and sort of controlling them robotically. But the moment that we are able to fuse our consciousness to this level of energy, it will respond perfectly to our imagination. So that's a very important thing to understand, because when we first open up to the world of energy, because we've been locked in this linear preset paradigm of everything working a certain way, the heart pumps blood, the lungs breathe oxygen, exhale CO2, the set preset way that everything works, we expect the spiritual systems of reality, the energetic reality, to be the same way as that. So we say, oh, we have 7 chakras, and then somebody else comes in and says, no, that's not true. We have 22 chakras. Somebody else comes in and says, no, chakras are evil. That's an extraterrestrial implant. We have 1 chakra here in the center of the heart. Or the energy comes up from the earth. No, source is above, and it comes down. Well, they're all correct, because anything that you choose to believe in regards to the energy happens instantaneously, because it's a level of energy that our consciousness has already fused itself to. So there's no such thing as an incorrect way of how the energy works in that regard. Everybody's correct, but there's superior and inferior configurations for whatever it is that you want to do with the energy. Sometimes it's nice to have your energy split into 7 primary centers. Sometimes it's more beneficial to have just one centralized center of energy. So, no right or wrong in any of this, but imagination is very, very important, and something we need to understand.
Excellent. I had a couple of things. I did this post. I don't remember what it said, because I pulled your words off of it. And you had this really cool comment on it. Very, very. I thought it was like the perfect real-time intel. But anyway, I was talking about on the post the Akashic as being, in reference to, we came into this with the Akashic, whether we were in recollecting it or not, forgetting it or not, or however you want to say that, and that we are now, as we become aware, kind of like a living library. And I looked at this in contrast after you wrote it, and I thought, well, here's a guy who's putting the bricks and mortar up with his life's mission, because I know you're in the process of refining the work you do, and expanding it, and expanding the awareness of it. So you've got to do these 3D things, but at the same time, you're an energy master and you understand it all. So you're kind of like merging both. So I thought it was really interesting because I'm going to read it here. It says, Akasha means light and the records. There are nothing more or less than every single probable past and future parallel, as the past and the future are constructs held within the light. The true records are not contained in the light, but are contained in the crystal core, a vast density of energy far more solid than our physical universe that resides in the center of our being. It is very hard to access because, for one, you have to be able to tolerate such a high level of energy compression, and two, it dwells in compressed time. So to spend just a few minutes there would be like many hours of physical time. This is the opposite of time experienced in the light, which is accelerated, so you can spend days there for just an hour or two. This is something you're very experienced in.
Mhm.
So it says, but it is a lesser reality that is merely an echo of our reality here. In
Mhm.
short, this is why psychic information is so unreliable. It is a skill of absolute mastery to be able to view information that relates to our linear timeline. This core, this heavier, in the best sense of the word, that we carry in the center of our being. That's
Mhm.
really the first time I ever heard of that. Can you go in a little bit into that and explain that to us?
Sure. I mean, I'll explain it on a few different levels. It's what we call in our course, we call it the God spark, or the some call it the soul star. Like, people have different names for it, but most people believe in a 0 point energy, or a core within the center of our being that radiates everything outwards. And I can attest to that because I can see all of the reality projecting from my center in heightened states of clairvoyance. And it's when the clairvoyance is open, you see that the energy works in layers. It's like an onion, layers stacked on top of layers, or like a candle flame. Like, if you light a candle, there's the primary flame of the candle,
Yeah.
and then around that is an aura that's visible to the physical eyes. Well, around that aura is an aura of the aura, and there's an aura of the aura of the aura. It depends on how expanded your clairvoyance is as to what you'll see. Well, the God spark, or the soul star, works like that. So at the closer you get to the center, to the core, the more compressed, or the more dense, the more brilliant, the more energy, the more particles per square inch. And the further out you get, it gets progressively lighter and lighter. And every bit of reality that we experience is formed from one of those layers of density. So all of the reality systems that we experience by projecting out of our body are out there in the light. And that's where 99.9% of the psychic information comes from. So here we are on Earth, which you could view as like the primary candle flame itself. And all of these spiritual realities are formed out of energies that are echoes or emanations from that. And that's where people access what they call the Akashic records, is from this lighter energy.
Okay.
And it doesn't add up, it doesn't relate. And anybody that's attempted to can vouch for this. I mean, it's very, very hard to get any psychic information that's reliable. Or you'll meet a psychic and they'll tell you all about your past lives, but they can't tell you what state you lived in when you were 5 years old in this one. I mean, you would think
Yeah.
that would be even easier to know something about this life. So the problem with that type of information, well, and you also have people that have these fantastical out of body experiences, and then they come back to their body and they've got the official scoop on what's going on. So they make a video and they tell you the world's going to turn into a sun in 2013, and then it just doesn't happen, and they're left confused, and wondering why. And these people are genuine, and most psychics are genuine. They are seeing things, but that doesn't mean that it relates to the linear timeline, because the past and the future are emanations or echoes from this energy. So the past and the future exist simultaneously with the now, but they're out here in the light. And when the clairvoyance is open very high, you can see all of these simultaneously, and they're the source of deja vu. Why you get that feeling, I've done this before, because you have. because everything's happening simultaneously in this accelerated time in the emanations of this light. So before you and I or even did this show, we already did it in accelerated time out there in the energy of the future. Or you get these people that channel, let's just say the Greys or something, and they say we're from your future. Well, that's what they mean by that. They're not like saying they're from our linear future. They are us. They're an echo, an emanation, a projection communicating back to here to basically warn us of a potential mistake. And I'm not claiming to know the official story on any of this because I don't really pay attention. I'm just providing a scenario as to how that would work and line up. But every out-of-body experience that you have is going to take place in the energy of what we would call the past and the future. So with that example, with Earth being the primary candle flame, there's a candle flame that's even more solid than that one that's the source of that. And that's just using the analogy. So back to the soul star, there's a compression level of energy that's even more internal than the physical reality. And that's what you would call source or God or the spark of life within you that everything comes from. And it's super solid. Like, it's a level of solidity that if you took this entire universe and compressed it to about the size of a walnut, you would be approaching what it is that I'm talking about. And science has also discovered it. They call it the Higgs boson particle, and they know that it's the source of all matter. This one super dense particle is the source of everything that we see here. And that's where the true records are kept. It's a super level of solidity. It's like an eternal crystal. And I know this is becoming long-winded, but I'll
No,
finish
I'm
up here.
loving it. Everybody's tuning in. The numbers are going up, so just keep talking.
Okay. Well, there's two eternal states of being, and most people are only aware of one because the second is very hard to obtain. So everything, all reality systems that are made of energy are in flux, are in motion, or have some type of reincarnational system. But a lot of people have projected to an eternal state that they call the void, where there's nothing there. And that's one eternal state of consciousness. And that's where everything sprang from. And I'm not painting one as superior or the other inferior, right. but the void is a great step, but that's where we came from, and it's not the superior reality, because in the void there's nothing. You have nothing in the void except for a sense of self. You have your I amness, but you don't have memory. You have a sense of being, and anything that you think or feel from within the void causes the void to vibrate, and it puts it in motion. It manifests it. Everything was projected from that state. But there's a second eternal state that exists alongside the void that I call the crystal. You could call it the core, many different names, soul star if you want. But that's a vibration in a frozen state. So light in a frozen state, like super solidity, like crystallized light. And this is one of the first things that the original creator obtained, was the ability to crystallize. And that gave the creator the ability to create the records, the memory of God itself, and eternal memory. And this is where the actual records of everything is stored in a super solid, crystalline mega computer. Something that's, if you relate the brain to a computer, this is far more advanced than the brain. Its circuitry is very intricate, and that dwells within the center of our being. So back to how this relates to time, each one of these compression layers of energy operates in a different type of time. So there's compressed time, and then there's expanded time. So from the way I've experienced it, Earth is a very high level of density, and the highest level of density that our consciousness is currently or typically able to be one with, which is why we're here, because it's growth for us, because we're exposing ourselves to a compression level of energy that's greater than what we could create for ourselves in spirit. And that's why we keep coming back to these physical bodies. But there's a compression level that's even greater than that within the human, and that's the residing place of God, or source, or the original intelligence that we all sprang from. And that's what's so special about the human, about physical life here on Earth, because it's only one layer away from that primal source.
Oh, wow.
And so then every layer that's lighter or more expanded than Earth is in what we call expanded or accelerated time. And so that means you can be out of your body for like several hours, come back to your body and go, oh my God, only 30 minutes has passed here. Or if you project out 2 layers, all of a sudden you could be out of your body 3 to 7 days, and only an hour has passed here. And if you go out even further, well, I mean, the most I've done is 3 years in an alternate reality, and then came back and only a few hours had passed here. And it was very disorienting. But yeah, the further out you go in the expanded energy, the more time is expanded as well. So what I mean by that, and where I'm going with this, is that Earth, or the physical vessel, is a greater gear on the universal clock than all of these other reality systems that all of these supposed higher beings come from. They're not higher. Well, I guess if you want to use that word, but they're not at a greater level of evolution than us, and they are us. It's all one, fragmenting out. So the extraterrestrial consciousness that communicates back is us speaking back from another perspective in expanded time. So there's a lot of wisdom, to be had there, because there's so much room for vast experience in terms of intellectual wisdom, but in terms of primal source, of like who affects who. Well, they say as above, so below, but it's far more like as below, so above.
So above,
because what we do here echoes into all of that and changes all of that. So the angels versus demons, the negative ETs versus positive ETs, these are all echoes of the war each one of us wages within here in the physical system in duality. But then if you go one layer deeper into yourself, where the only greater reality exists, so the only place a person could truly go to get information from a level of consciousness that's truly greater than humanity is in one more layer into a greater density to reach that greater gear on the universal clock. You will now be in compressed time, which means you could spend a few minutes there and a whole day could pass here. So in other words, it's not penetratable. Life is a mystery and continues to be so. There is nobody that can know everything about the past and the future. The veil here is pretty much impenetrable because of that system of time, the way it's all set up that way. So we can have out-of-body experiences. We can remember that we're spirit. We can experience the joy of that, but for as long as we're in a physical body, there's no way to fully penetrate that mystery, because there's no way for the brain to translate that level of information. In 3 minutes the brain can't there's so much happening in one tick of a moment in that greater source that the brain can't keep up. So we can get little tiny snippets, we can perceive how it's all going down, but it's like very concentrated at the core, is what you're saying, and this fits in with what I've always experienced, which is the universe teaches in a paradoxical manner. So you're basically saying the core, the central sun, source, God, whatever you want to call it, is the most dense. It's in the center. We're the next step out, and we've emanated all this stuff out there. And we've conceived that this stuff out there is all bigger than us, and in fact, we're bigger than it.
Yeah, that's a great
And
explanation.
it is us, just like we are source being expressed as a human. Every layer of energy that's a lighter emanation from where we dwell is a literal fragment or an aspect of our being. So
Yeah,
every single human is going to find some things out pretty soon that is pretty profound, and that is that you have an aspect on every single star world in existence. You have a
yeah,
Pleiadian, an Arcturian, a Reptilian, a Gray. You name it. The list is huge. But you're not just a star seed. That's true, but it's a very partial truth. You're a God seed,
yeah,
and God is the original source, prime creator of everything. And because of that, and because of the layer of density where we dwell, which is just one layer out from the original source, all of these are aspects of our own being speaking backwards to us
yeah.
through
It's
time.
almost like there's we're going back in time, or with the way the energies and things are happening, that it's almost like an inhale.
Hmm.
Like everything's being pulled back in, all the
Yeah.
stories are merging, and yeah, you
Hmm.
get that. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. That's
Yeah.
what I perceive it as well. That it's all coming back together. Humpty Dumpty's being put back together again, and yeah,
So
it's huge.
in one sense, it's not happening because of us. I'm speaking more as a human
Hmm.
in transition here, whatever. It's not really happening because of us. It's happening. It's happening.
Mm.
Period. Maybe we can ride it, align with it, maybe. But the truth
Yeah.
is, it is happening because of us. The whole thing's happening because of us.
Yeah,
Yeah, this
just
is a
different degrees of truth in that, depending on the density layer of energy that you came from. So our influence as humans on the lighter density layers of energy is vast. It doesn't mean
yeah,
that they don't have any free will at all, but it does mean that we have a heavy degree of influence on what goes on in these
mm,
lighter systems of reality. Now, the source is in that greater compression level of energy, right here at the center of our being, and it has a massive influence on everything that's happening on the planet, and that's a good thing. But we do have free will at the same time. We contribute. We co-create. We're not. There's no robotic puppeteering going on here. It's always a co-creation. But the source that created this system of physical reality that dwells at the core of our being in oneness has a far greater impact on the direction that Earth is going to go than humans do. Thank God.
yeah. And I think at the same time, what this is making me understand or see more clearly, visually, is like this past week. You and I were talking about it, and everybody's been talking about the energies coming down and the little come to Jesus meetings we're all having
Mhm.
with the universe. But I had mine 3 or 4 days ago, and it was just that combination of emotional, physical, mental. Work your overwork a little bit, but the energies, and I hit my knees, and I got very emotional, and so I spoke, from that vantage point, spoke to the universe, and said, I need some help here. But the truth is, I was aligning with, as I listened to you, I was really, what I was doing was speaking to my future, my past, my parallel aspects, and pulling them
Mhm.
all in, and finding some congruence, which is, to me, an exciting way to look at it.
Oh, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So we're really closer to the core, which is the bottom line. We're closer to the core, almost as if Earth, if not absolutely so, is the center, is the
Hmm.
first, yeah, is the center. I believe it that way. Like you said, it's more like below is to above
Mm. Yeah,
instead
as
of
below, so
above.
above.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. Great discussion. I'm totally digging this one. So it would only make sense that we can't penetrate that. When you refer to that veil, it's just too impenetrable. You're really almost like talking about the one that we would perceive as behind us. There seems to be a veil lifted that's we thought was in front of us, which is really the other way around.
Yep.
So
The veil
that's,
that we can penetrate reveals the lesser systems of reality, not the greater systems of reality.
yeah,
Earth
yeah,
is the greater system of reality in that comparison.
Right. Amazing. This is amazing. It'll be amazing to see too, and I'm going back to your life's work, your abilities, and time put in and developed as a energy master, but also building that bricks and mortar in this age. How are you finding that a go? Trying to manifest, but also operate and honor the energy. Try to integrate them as far as working with people in the traditional or non-traditional sense, or 3D sense, or 5D sense, organization, planning, that type of thing. Do you find that challenging?
I do. Naturally, I don't interact much with people that aren't there, that aren't like on the level, and I haven't since all of this started happening in 2008. I can for brief periods of time, but I can't spend too much time in that frequency range of thought and carry on. And I've been rearranging for the longest time now how I approach all of this, because once I perceive the greater reality being in the core of my being, and knowing that it's projecting or holding, all of space and time, the past and the future, I've been learning more and more to let go of all of this up here in the head, and to take that presence that normally is held up here in the mind space, the thinker, the planner, the coordinator, and just drop that down in the heart, and then just go for the feelings and the sensations, the way that the energy moves me to be, or to speak, or to behave, or even with appointments and time. The more you can begin to trust this, you get into that magical state that we call the flow, where everything becomes divine synchronicity, and it all lines up, because the source, which dwells at the core of your being, knows itself as being every single one of us simultaneously. We're its offspring, we're its fragments. And it also knows our past and our future, probable, parallel, all of it. It encompasses all of it. So when you choose to let go of this and embrace this instead, the heart, it can put you in this super magical aligned state of synchronicity where everything just flows magically. And so I've learned to tune into and to trust that, instead of having to live life the other way, the strategical planning, conscious mind.
I find that interesting, because I've been on the same path, and today I had a show today, this morning, and then went for a walk, and then this synchronistic stuff was coming in very clearly. And the first thing I wanted to do was pick up the phone and call people and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. But something stopped me. And I didn't really understand it. And I don't really know if I can explain it, but it was like, you know what? This is the work. This is it. Just staying in this stream and just keep going through it. It's going to get more and more congruent, or more aligned. And I find it curious, because how do you relay these messages? but I guess it just falls into place, and I guess it would only make sense if we're going back to where we came from, that it's going to be nonverbal.
Yeah.
But I know
telepathic from the levels of full connection. So when I'm out of my body, it doesn't matter what world I'm in, what race they are. When they talk, I hear it as English. When I speak, it's as English, and I will hear everything they say in my native tongue. They will hear everything I say in my native tongue, because the true communication is heart to heart. The feeling happens before the spoken word. Like if I'm sitting here communicating to you, if you get inspired to say something, it happens in a flash, like a quarter of a second. You'll feel this feeling within you, and contained in that feeling is every single damn thing you could possibly say about it, which is why we struggle, or why we sometimes interrupt people to say what we want to say, because we're trying to hold on to that feeling, that contains all of the knowledge. So the true communication always happens before the mental communication even engages. So even animals can understand what you say in English while you're out of your body, because the true communication is heart to heart.
And I think that's happening some maybe more in a more expanded way in our physical.
Certainly, as we begin to access those lighter layers simultaneously with this, we will reopen the ability to communicate in light language, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of that going around.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some pretty powerful shows with people, that have been doing light language, ancient voice, and that type of thing. And you can. There's a part of you that can understand exactly what they're saying, even
Mm-hmm.
though they're not speaking it. Not speaking the native tongue in this consciousness.
Right.
Yeah. So this is amazing that this is all moving so fast. And I think from your perspective, because you're very objective. What do you see happening on the collective? I mean, it just seems to be moving so fast. It seems like these last 7 months have been like 7 years.
Yeah. Well, everything is coming back together. The human consciousness has finally reoriented itself to go in instead of out. And the more of us that choose to do that, it's like a snowball. So it gains in mass, and the more mass it gains, the faster it grows or evolves. So each one of us that gets involved and does the work to begin to access both the greater core energies within and expand back out into the lighter energies that we came from, makes it far easier for everybody else to do it, because we are a collective mind, even though that might be veiled from us. So everything is happening faster and more rapid because of that, because each human that does the work, that breaks the limited paradigm of the physical reality, or begins breaking it, because I don't think anybody's broken it yet entirely, but each one of us that does makes it easier for the next.
Yeah.
And they don't even necessarily have to do the work. Like, they could just be teetering on the edge of having a spontaneous awakening, and enough people in the collective have a conscious chosen awakening through the work, and all of a sudden things get thinned up or lightened up enough to where, boom, it can just happen for them. And so that's why it's snowballing like that.
So like the first ones are walking through a concrete wall, and the latter ones are walking just through a sheet.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So what I love.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
When I first made my energy course, Avatar Energy Mastery, back in 2011, and posted all the lesson videos, it was quite a high success ratio considering what it is that I'm teaching, but probably like 20 to 40% were having success with the lessons, and it was taking maybe a couple months for them to crack that open. It steadily progressed, and by 2013, 2014, 80 to 90% of the students were having success with the lessons and breaking through barriers in like 2 to 3 weeks. Wow. It's because it was a new introduction into the collective paradigm. So each student that came in and adhered to the exercises and the philosophy, and opened their minds and consciousness in this way, made it easier for the next students coming in.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the other thing I love about this explanation you gave us about the soul star, is that what you called it?
I call it the God spark, but everybody has a different.
Is that it is headed the other direction, of course, and we've always heard, go inside, go within, but this just makes so much more sense in terms of what that comment was on the post, where you said you go into this central core. It's so concentrated that you might be there. It's reverse of the outer experience, where you're gone for 3 or 4 hours and it was only 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. It's the reverse of that. It makes sense that this whole time and space thing is becoming less and less of an impact on us as a result. Now you're doing some fantastic work. I'm a big believer in, I think this is about our 505th show. That it takes a little bit of repetition to get the word out. Although I do think that we're picking up things a lot quicker now, but I know that a lot of people, based on the energy of the audience, would be interested to know what you do. Where do you stand with your life's work? I know you're refining it, and just kind of an overview. And I know you've done it before, but I know there's a lot of new people in here. So I think I think it would be a benefit to the audience, and also this is why you're doing this. You're doing this for the masses and from your heart. So if you could just take us through, for 10 or 12 minutes, what you're doing, whatever you feel like, however you need to, whatever background you need to put into it or whatever,
Yeah.
and how we can get access to where you're at, and so on and so on.
Okay. Well, if you're just tuning in, my name is Michael Monk, and I'm an energy practitioner, a healer, and a teacher of metaphysics and consciousness expansion. I didn't choose this life path. You could say it chose me, or at least from the human level. I'm sure from the soul level I did, but it all started opening up for me in the year 2000. I wasn't seeking, but I had spontaneous telepathic communication with God. I was raised religious, so I viewed it in those terms. A couple of weeks after this spontaneous telepathic communication, I began to pray, because that's what I knew how to do at that time. Not that there's anything wrong with praying. I'm not saying that, but I began to experience reality bending miracles by praying to God in the name of Jesus, and I mean like very high level stuff. Instantaneous healing of an open flesh wound for one, instant healing of cancer in others for two, and many more. I don't want to go too much into that, but I knew at a young age, early 20s, that far more was possible, and that God was real, and I was looking for all of the answers. I didn't find them in religion, and this presence that at the time I called the Holy Spirit was guiding me on my life path. It stayed with me, and it would voice itself to me here and there, not very often. But eventually it led me to study metaphysics. It led me to study the law of one channeling. It led me to study the Seth material. And I started to begin to understand the mechanisms behind these miracles that I was receiving, or at least intellectually, because of reading these books. And when I got the right level of intellectual understanding, the source presence, God, came back within my being and opened me up to an incredibly high level of experience, where the entire world became rippling rainbow light, and then my body did the same thing. So I basically dematerialized into rainbow light and came back into physical form. But I didn't do it. This greater God presence did it to me to show me what was possible. So once the experience was over, I had no idea either A, how to see the world as rippling rainbow light, or B, how to turn into that myself. But my curiosity was definitely piqued enough to where I began to seek meditation. And I was guided to not to study any of the meditations that were out there, to just trust that I would get the right meditations at the right time that would open things up. And that finally happened. The first thing that opened up for me was clairvoyance. So I could see energy everywhere with my regular eyes wide open. It wasn't too long before I could hear, taste, touch, everything else. All of the other senses quickly got on board. From there, I just worked and played around in the energy every single day. It was my passion. It was all I would care about. I didn't socialize or hang out with people. I would just open up this magical world of energy, play with it, and take notes, make observations, put all the pieces together to how this energetic world works. And it was about a year after that it all started changing for me, because the original perception was that I'm a small energy being in a humongous world of vast energy. But there was a moment during a meditation where I opened up my clairvoyance, where a greater part of myself came in and spoke through me. And it said, I am not the physical body. I am the light that flows out of it. And as soon as I spoke those words, all of the energies in the room collapsed like a dying star into the center of my being. Pop, exploded outward 360 degrees. And once that happened, everything changed, because my consciousness went out with the light, because I had just rearranged the nature of my identity to be the light instead of the physical body. So once that happened, I very quickly noticed that my consciousness had an impact on things, that I could cause movement in the wind and the water, that I could change the weather in the sky, that I could was very effective at healing people without praying, you know, by using my own energy, my own consciousness, and my own understanding. So from there, I felt that I had something to share with the world, because while I had this magical world of energy that I could open up that nobody else could see, it was incredible, but I didn't feel like, you know, it was time for me to come forward and share. But by the time I developed these external, real, physical, spiritual abilities that can be demonstrated on camera, I decided it's time to share all of this. And so that was 2011, and I created the energy school that I'm still running today, called the Avatar Energy Mastery Institute, which is basically a compressed version of all that I went through. So I said to myself, if I were to go back in time to the Michael Monk before he knew energy and teach him, what lessons would I want him to learn? Like, how would I do this to make sure that he grows in as fast a way as possible? And that's what Avatar Energy Mastery is all about. And I've been running that school for, it's 2018, so 7 years now.
Wow.
And you can look it up at avatarenergymaster.com or avatarenergymastery.com. They both go to the same address, but there's a website there with video demonstrations and links to the energy course that I teach, as well as I'm still offering healing sessions for another few months, and also activation of higher consciousness. So all of that is available at avatarenergymaster.com. And to wrap it up, I've taught a student in my course who got to my mastery level. I've got 3 levels in my course called Awakening, Advanced, and Mastery. But he happens to be a professional animator, and it's definitely a part of the flow. But he offered to work with me. And so I've been busy over the last entire year, because it's very, very time consuming to make animations, putting all of my course material into a new format with high definition studio filming. That's why I got the green screen there with animation. So it's like a whole new level. You know, an animation can pop up to the left or to the right of me to help expand on what I'm explaining, or I can fade out entirely and the whole screen can become an animation.
You can do that anyway, though.
Yeah.
That's the third level
For them. But if you're eager to start, there's definitely no reason to wait, because I'm going to offer that all current members of Avatar Energy Mastery can stay at the price point that they're at, which is $29 a month for that.
Mm-hmm.
I am increasing the fee to $39 a month, because these animations, it's insanely time consuming to make them. It can take a week to a month to make one short video. But yes, if anybody joins Avatar right now, you will get locked in at a discounted rate on the both of those. But really looking forward to the release of this, because having visuals, you know, backing up what I say in real time, it's amazing. Because of that, I've been able to restructure what I teach to include much more advanced material, much more early on, because having the visual experience allows certain concepts to click in. Or like you say, the brick and the mortar allows you to form solid structure of knowledge without having to first have the small experiences that would lead up to your ability to understand that. So really looking forward to the release of this, and that's going to be on August 31st. But in the meantime, you can find me at avatarenergymaster.com.
Fascinating. It's fascinating. So, and you heard it. So anyone that gets in now, before he rolls out the new one, is going to be grandfathered in at the 29. And this is not something that just came up. This has been going on for 7+ years. You heard the story, and it's a lot easier for all of us today to figure out who's walking the walk and who's not. So, but Michael, this is the 3rd time he's been on. He's very well known and respected. Anybody needs to get in touch with him or find him, down the road and doesn't remember, you can go through me. And I'm sure we're going to be doing some more collaborations together. But since we're walking into this new energy, we're not going to discuss it. We're not going to plan it. But but I have it all going off in my head. I'm sure you do too.
Mhm.
But I'll be glad to help you anyway if and when you put anything out or you want to get anything out, as I've told you before, and expand the awareness of it. Just let me know.
Excellent.
We're moving forward too, and you're on my list to inform. And really, you don't have to do anything different. We're just looking to expand this platform and give people like you a wider awareness so that we can all move through this with a little more ease and grace.
That's great, brother. I'm honored.
Yeah. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for coming on again. I can't wait till the next time. I look forward to what you got coming out. I'm going to do a little R&R Monday and Tuesday, and I have it in my calendar. I'm going to go through your stuff a little bit deeper. I don't have much time, and I've touched here and there, but I want to go a little bit deeper. Yeah.
Sure thing. And we'll probably meet in person sometime, and I can show you a lot of this firsthand. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I was thinking that about 30 minutes ago, 30 minutes back in the show. I was thinking, you're in the Panhandle, Florida, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I think, yeah, it could be a lot sooner than we might think too. Peace out, brother. Thank you a lot.
I'm staying. God bless you all. Thanks for tuning in.
All right. Take care. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See you later.